Hello and welcome back to the DP World Tour Picks and Bets Show. Skylar, Hoak here, joined with Tom Jacobs. Tom, missed you during the down period for my end. Appreciate you holding down the fort with, I think you hit a winner or two in my absence via both tours. So good to see you, my friend.
Yeah, great to see you. Congratulations on the new arrival. Hope life is all good in that sense. Way more important than talking DP World Tour golf bets, right? So did hit Jordan Gumberg, but it was not on a podcast, I don't think, which is really annoying. So I think we shut down, then we won that the following week. Then last week won with Fitz. By the way, I know like different podcasts. Fitz, unbelievable, man. Like as soon as it went to that playoff, and the way he was like signing his scorecard, I thought he was done. Like I literally tweeted out saying like he's cooked. Like he looked so stressed. He like wouldn't look at Scheffler. He like threw the scorecard at him. I think he just annoyed himself right for the chip. But then went to the playoff hole. He like jokingly introduced himself to Scotty as a higher Matt Fitzpatrick, and then won the hole. And it was like, this guy is now the third best player in the world according to the world rankings. I mean, he probably isn't quite the third best player in the world, but he's definitely top 5 now. Like, there's no question about that. It's been like borderline top 10, top 5. He's now top 5. Really amazing from where we were talking about this time last year, Sky. Like, it was like really scary where his game had got to, right? Like, he was outside the top 70, I think.
Yeah, what I wrote about it too on ETR kind of. I mean, I think a lot of what you and I like to do in golf is storytell and get to hear the stories from kind of unheralded players getting their way up and down, finding spots, but also there is still room for that type of story near the best players in the world, and kind of Fitzpatrick fits that mold of like a grinder, a nerd, somebody who isn't. I mean, he's obviously uber talented, but maybe not as talented as the other guys from a raw standpoint, and has outworked them. Like that is a fun player to root for, and I enjoyed like seeing that. And then the crowd rooting against him, everything like that was really like a cool moment for him. Obviously, also during our break, his brother Alex won the last edition of the DP World Tour event over the Hero Indian Open. They team up at the Zurich, which is pretty intriguing, getting both of them in red hot form for that. But for us ahead of this week, Volvo China Open. So again, there's been a gap in schedule, right? We have not seen the DP World Tour since before the Masters. So we kind of get, again, this odd just break, right? I mean, I guess it's 3.5, 4 weeks. And before that, it was 2 weeks with a 2-week break in between there too. So, form numbers, a little bit odd, stop, start, go for some of these guys, not the standard. I don't want to say standard. I mean, it's Patrick Reed less field. Yeah. So you do get a little bit of difference there at the top. I guess overarching thoughts. We saw this course last year. Ashen Wu was victorious. Jordan Smith kind of in the mix. But we just kind of lead off with basically a trio of golfers that seem to be separating the market. Daniel Hillier, who got his first win in Australia from the calendar year for how well he's played. Angel Ayora at 11-1. And then all the way up to Eugenio Chichara, who played on the Korn Ferry Tour last week. I believe he top 10 there. Any thoughts at the top of the board?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's tough, isn't it? Like, I think, Hillier being a winner on the DP World Tour and the Asian Tour, because he won the British Masters and the New Zealand Open, right? And then you've got Ayora that I know we say this every week, but it just feels like he's just not quite there yet, and he's priced like he belongs there, and it's really confusing. So, like, I think it's good for us that we get a bit of value from someone like that at the top, and probably the same really applies to Lindell, right? I think that we haven't have evidence yet that he can win. Certainly very, very consistent. Certainly a great player, one that we really like. I mean, going back the last 7 events, he's not finished outside the top 30. He's only finished inside the top 10 twice as well, and it's quite noticeable that they've got a couple of guys up there. I mean, Chikara has won on the DP World Tour at the Indian Open last year. So Hillier and Chikara have won, but I wouldn't necessarily look to see Hillier as this kind of like very proven winner. So I think it's an interesting top of the market. It makes for a more exciting betting heat than when Patrick Reed is involved and Jarvis has been involved recently. But as you said, really hard because we've had these massive breaks. We don't know if the people that are, putting together form before the break are going to be able to pick that back up again. We don't know if people have had extended breaks. Does that matter? Because everyone's had an extended break. There's all these challenges, and we've only seen the course once. There wasn't a massive amount of takeaways from last year. I mean, anytime Ashton Wu wins, you suggest that it levels the playing field, and you can kind of do it by getting up and down and generally speaking, hitting your irons well. But don't think you need distance, right? Particularly so. Just not enough really solid takeaways. It's not like the PGA Tour. We know what these courses are. You know what is needed. You can kind of hunt down the field. I think in these sorts of events, we've had a massive break and the course is not so clear. I just refer to the best winners in the field and lean on that kind of experience more than anything else.
Yeah, and I think I also like somebody who played golf last week and did it against stiff competition and performed well. And I think that's why we're both on Eugenio to just start off the card, right? Yep. I mean, Chikara, somebody, again, if you're looking for type of golf that would make sense at this golf course, it's, playing more accurate, to your point. It's playing a little bit more with your irons and on a difficult type test. That's like DLF, right? That is what the Hero Indian Open is probably a great lead-in tournament for this, and to correlate with it. I mean, winner, runner-up, somebody we lined up at DLF for Eugenio Chicharo there. And again, last three events, runner-up on the European Tour, top 10 in the DP World Tour, on the Korn Ferry Tour, 21st on the PGA Tour. He's facing better competition than what has existed out here and performed well, and also isn't the lead-in market guy. I think 20-1 is a great price.
Yeah, I mean, look, the only sort of mark on his record over the last month or so, or last four starts, is that one miscut in China at the Hainan Classic. But not too fazed by that, considering last year he came here, he was second after round one, first after rounds 2 and 3, and finished fourth. And that was, to your point, a start after winning the Hero Indian Open, Sky. To be able to perform like that on your first visit to the golf course with the increased pressure of being the most recent winner, I think it's incredible. And this time around, he's coming off as you said, he went close in his title defense, which is, appealing in itself. But then he's gone over to the Korn Ferry Tour, top 10 over there. He seems like a player that's kind of course-proof to an extent. I know he's had, he should have got a PGA Tour card last year. We can't kind of ignore that. He was really fast out of the traps, did really well, won, followed out really nicely, and then faded in the second half. But I think the talent is so good that he could go and play on the PGA Tour and be fine. I think he's just got to kind of get his mind right. I think he's talked about that, Sky, a couple of times, right? I think he took a few weeks off because he was really struggling mentally. So generally speaking, the talent is there. All of the facets of the game are there. He does seem to enjoy the tougher tests, as he's proven with DLF, and I think he'll get that this week. So, yeah, I guess the only downside is he's got to come back from Mexico, right? But that's it. These guys are not traveling in economy with their knees up to their chin. They're probably quite comfortable. I think they're fine. Yeah,
definitely interesting to turn around. There's a break in the Korn Ferry Tour schedule too, so he doesn't have to follow up that top 10. So I was like, oh, maybe he's not even going to tee it up, but he should go probably DP World Tour for a bit, back to the Korn Ferry Tour. Might even be able to reshuffle into the Korn Ferry Tour stuff. I'd be curious how actually that shakes out for him. But so I think he was the clear top bet. I think we've seen some popularity with him. I found struggle in this next range of golfers here. I'll talk about the one that I debated that I think I'm just going to end up passing on. And it's almost against my morals to not bet Yan Han Zhu this week, right? But the price, you probably should have bet him the last China event where he finished T3rd and played well all 4 rounds, not doing, any content for that. I was just kind of bummed to be the 1 week where, and I think he was priced pretty low relative still once we kind of get back into the country that he has dominated golf in. But 45-1, he actually does seem to be one that's a little bit more on the power side. So I think that I'm okay, maybe from a course fit perspective, to maybe take a chance down the board at one of the other kind of local golfers that have played pretty well there. So he was the one that stood out to me for it. But for your sense, was there anybody else kind of in this mid-range?
I looked at Campillo and Ewan Ferguson just from as a point of like people that you know can go and win. In the end, I kind of decided that Campillo didn't really have enough going for him. He missed the cut here last year. He's never played particularly well in China the last couple of years. So that was the kind of takeaway from him. Ferguson playing better, but one of those ones where I just don't know if he's someone that I feel like when he gets rolling, he needs to keep playing, and these kind of breaks are going to hurt him. So I left those two and went with someone at kind of 47-1.
Yeah, you could roll right into it.
Yeah, so I went with Adrian Ategi, and the reason being a couple of things. Like, obviously, he played reasonably well here last year, finishing 26th place, I believe it was, Sky, second round 66. But he's won this event, obviously, a couple of years ago now. I was really close between like him and Nacho Oliveira. Talking about those players, they've won like 5 times on the DP World Tour. Another one we're going to get to is another 5-time winner. Like, having that ability to go and win in this level of field is quite standout, really, when we talk about the depth here. I know there's like some more experienced pros down the bottom of the betting, but not going to get to those. You think about the fact he's had a 4-stroke victory over Matt Wallace. He's strong, right? Then you look at how he's hitting his irons, 5th, 3rd, 2nd, and 14th in his last 4 events in strokes gained approach. I just thought it was really, really difficult to ignore. I think there's someone that we know can win. The slight concern, Sky, is that he, had that really good run before this break, right? Like he went 6th, 3rd. Is it hard to get going again after that break? The 3rd, obviously, being in the Hainan Classic. I think he's okay, which is why I've persevered. I think he is the sort of person who can just pick it up again. But yeah, I thought Adrian Ategi is pretty much, he knows China. He's got a win in the second in China. He loves, the Middle East in general, Asia, in general. And yeah, I just think he's a fantastic player in this level of field.
Yeah, totally. I ended up not siding there. I think it's hard. The question is, does a month off of just eliminate form from the category? I just think it doesn't matter as much from a timing perspective.
And I think that's really important, Scott. I think the reason in the end was would I take him at 45-1 if we just hadn't seen him for a month? And the answer was yes. So yeah. I think in the end, you have seen him go 6th and 2nd. If you treat it as he hasn't done anything for a month because he's been off for so long, that's fine too. I still would have taken that price. So that's how I kind of made peace with that kind of break. Yep.
Totally good with it. I think the other golfer, again, I'm kicking myself a little bit. I mean, I think it's probably somebody who I was impressed with, at least from a standpoint of just showing a little bit more consistency, but still from a top end. I think I'm going to end up passing here mid-range. But Kota Kaneko is somebody who probably benefits from this style of golf quite a bit compared to the emphasis put on ball striking so many of the courses have. This one might leak it a little bit and be more of how can you get it around the green or just score. And he seems to have that in him and was obviously, very well thought of throughout the betting cards earlier this year because of his Q school play, because of some of the stuff from an odds perspective he's been at. So I don't mind him in the mid-range, but you put him side by side to, again, another popular selection of the week. But I can't believe 60-1s are still available on Matteo Manacero. Coming off of an exceptional performance at DLF, coming off from just the golfer of how we would profile him, how good he was 2 years ago, just what, we trust of his accuracy, his irons, just that type of play, man, we would have probably all still been interested if he was 33-1 this week. And the prices have held despite being highly tipped. I think he's a slam dunk at 60-1.
I couldn't believe the price. And I don't need encouragement to bet Matteo Manacero, right? We know that. But he's the golden example of out of sight, out of mind when he's on the PGA Tour. And I actually thought he did better than I kind of expected over there. He was quite good in the first round a lot of time. He had some decent results, not great. But you look at the kind of numbers, and look, he was 41st in Bahrain, but he was actually 18th going into Sunday. He's 24th in South Africa, but he closed with a 65. He was 9th in India, where he closed with a 69 in a really tough event. But this is a player that's won in Malaysia, he's won in Singapore, he's finished runner-up in Hong Kong, he's got multiple other top fives in Asia. So he absolutely loves this part of the world. No, he didn't play last year because he was obviously over at the PGA Tour. He's ranked 10th, 10th, and 13th in strokes gained approach the last 3 cuts that he's made. He's hitting the ball well. He will be able to get it up and down. I say up and down. He'll get it up. He'll do the scrap. He'll do the chipping part, and the putting is where we are slightly unsure. But I think generally speaking, he's good enough on his day to do it. And yeah, 60-1 is, I think, just wrong. Like, I think it's actually the wrong price when you consider, as you said, like you mentioned Zhu and Kaneko there, but also like we've got like Norgard Muller that just seems to never shift in the market. We've got LaCroix and Lindbergh who are playing well but don't really win. Like, I'm surprised that he's lower than all of those. And we know the upside of Manacero is what, a 5-time winner and someone that's contended in these kind of signature events and won at Wentworth.
Oh, 100%. Like, again, 33s would have probably tempted still half of us out there. So I thought it was very, very interesting from the price that it held in that manner.
I actually think I probably still would have almost certainly paid him. Like,
right.
It would be, you'd have to kind of justify it more. Whereas now it's just like, this guy's won 5 times, he's better than most of the field, and he's 60-1. But with those Asian sort of kind of links and just who he is and the sort of statistical profile, I thought 60-1 was just mad.
Yeah. Oh, I couldn't agree more. Okay, your next selection. What are the odds on the next one for you?
So I've done Ategi, Manacero, and Chikara. So I've got one more 100.
Well, let's have then the. So I'm kind of on the fence here.
Yep.
The MJ Dafu discussion here. I can never pronounce his last name. Right? I think it's Duffy. I think it used to be Dafu and then it became Duffy. I think you're right.
Yeah. By the way, like, he is like, I need to go back and look, but like we had an exchange on over DMs once on Twitter, and he, like, a really nice guy. I can't remember what he was reaching out to me for, but I need to look into it. But yeah,
we've bet this type of player. So like, I'm actually leaning against it actually at the moment here. The more that I've looked into a couple other guys that I like he's probably priced appropriate, right? He finished 3rd, and then he was top 15. So basically it's almost like we had, I think last year, Josh Berry, when he won like back-to-back or did it on the Challenge Tour and then went into the Hero Indian Open after doing well in the same country and did a top 10 there. Like, getting that at 80-1 it's probably a pretty good price. I don't know, like, from what I remember of MJ, like, it was built not really around this style of golf, yet he played so well at DLF that I thought, but he's more like a power guy.
He is.
He's the best player on the Challenge Tour right now, the Hotel Planner Tour right now.
Yeah, I was really close to him because of the pedigree. We know he was that kind of solid player that couldn't really make a go of it on the PGA Tour, right? Like, he was solid on the Korn Ferry Tour a lot. Like, he had, you go back to 2022 and he had 5 top 5s and a couple more top 10s. Has some good finishes on the PGA Tour. He just seems to be kind of bouncing around on tours at the moment. And then he comes over here and he's got those 2 Challenge Tour wins. He's winning at the Indian Open. He's probably better than almost everybody around him in terms of just ability. But like you said, he probably isn't one that is foolproof and course proof. He is a distance man, and that's how he does it. And maybe but then, as you said, finished 3rd at the Indian Open. Maybe you can't really overpower a course like that. So I was very tempted.
Yeah, because I'm going to end up going like with multiple guys that are more what I think built around this course that maybe haven't like popped to that standpoint of what he has in a recent standpoint. And maybe like that's going to make me feel bad come the weekend, having listed already 3 guys that like maybe this second baby is giving me a new vision on my betting card. Because before, what Kaneko, MJ, and Zhu would have been right on it. But I think guys like here at 100-1, David Law for me. So David Law, again, if you're just looking like lead in iron play, I mean, I think iron play is what's going to separate here. And like from just a standpoint of their games, David Law does not feel that, at 100-1 for me, I feel pretty solid about, the style of play. Like, he is nothing like that really gets you excited, right? But he dropped down to the Challenge Tour last year, just dominated it, right? Like, deserving to be back on the DP World Tour, but really has never, I would say, like, stretched it all together, right? I mean, he had good years. I mean, he was on the tour for like 5 years in a row, 6 years in a row, winning the Vic Open, back in 19. And then this year has just been kind of flat. But 2 signs in a row, if you look at kind of the Indian Open, T9, Hanan, I guess 4 made cuts in a row, but the irons was what was really trending for David Law, around him being this style of golfer for me, that's built around accuracy, that's built around iron play. I think, each of the 2 events prior were leading 20th after the first round, 20th after the second round, and then puts it together for the 9th at DLF with good iron play leading in. So, like, I lean him, and even like a stretch where, like, this golfer probably is a little bit low on the price scale in regards to who he is and how he's kind of really been. But the same exact story for me is told for Hugo Townsend, who has 2 top 20s in his last 3 events. He had a 51st in between that wasn't that good, but at the Joburg Open, he was 3rd going into the halfway point. At the Indian Open, he was 98th after the first round, rallied to finish inside the top 20. Both those events saw super good iron play from him. He actually is a little bit more powerful than accuracy, so the DLF stuff kind of made me a little bit excited, because he at least matched the field on accuracy. But those irons have been really good. He has 4 top 20s this year in 8 events after, graduating from the Hotel Planner Tour. So ending up on him, just kind of guessing that this course fit, even though he's built on distance a little bit, the iron play adding to it should be pretty good.
Yeah, both those I looked at. I mean, Law's been heading for really well. He's got like 3 top 15s in China. I think a couple at the Volvo China Open, one in this event a couple of years ago, I think, when Otegi won. So I like that standpoint. Hugo, just a really difficult one to kind of work out, right? Like, as you said, he's kind of, it's meant to be distance driven based on his stats, but he seems to be popping up at the courses that make sense to this one. So yeah, definitely encouraged by both of those.
And that's where, like, do you just take MJ's performance on the Challenge Tour more serious than what Hugo has been doing on the DP World Tour? They're probably not. It's hard because the tours, the current state they're in, like, the talent level is getting picked through so much that like, I don't know if the gap is bigger than what it has ever been, or is it closer than it's ever been. Like, you can make an argument for both.
It's funny, isn't it? Because I think, like, the last few years we've seen these Challenge Tour players jump straight up and be ready to go, right? Like, I think about Raitan and Henge, right? Like, both of them just been unbelievable, and Raitan 10th and halfway at the Masters for a little bit. Like, I think we had a very good crop of Challenge Tour golfers for a few years left over from people that weren't able to graduate in kind of 2020 and all the COVID stuff. And I think that's going to peter out. I think this class was pretty poor that's joined. And I know we're talking about Townsend playing quite well, but generally speaking, I think it's like, I don't see any of these going on and being like PGA Tour players particularly. So I think the talent level is growing. And I think the reason someone like NJ Duffy or Duffy, whatever it is, is performing well over there, because the talent level he's playing against is crap, for lack of
what it was.
And we don't know what he would. And that, I mean, to be fair, he finished 3rd in the Indian Open field, so maybe he's just playing really well. But it is hard to gauge, and that's the problem we've got, right? We're not seeing. Before, we would see these players play 2 or 3 really good events on the Challenge Tour, get a DP World Tour start, and then very quickly work out where they are, where they're measuring. We're not getting that now. Like, it's all over the place.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%. I'll go for the next one because it's just very much along the same path of somebody who has been virtually lights out with his irons the last 3 events. Hadn't really capitalized it into like that big of a finish. Whereas I think he was 23rd and 18th, 2 starts ago. Indian Open, he was 43rd. But Sebastian Garcia is somebody who, from an iron play, just if I followed the recipe, those were the 3 that kind of stood out to me that, like, again, there is definitely a gap of timing for everybody, and why actually I think, you could ask. I mean, when's the last time like the market leader has had 9 weeks off? Like Hillier hasn't played in forever, right? But if you look at what Garcia has done, if I pull up his recent iron play, 7th and 10th last time, 2 times out, 23rd. So the lead in of having back-to-back top 10 iron play performances, and this is again European tour data because we didn't even have ShotLink here, so you are guessing a little bit. But him and Law were the only 2 ones, especially at this price level, that had that same level of it. I mean, if I look at Garcia's top finishes, he did win in China last year on the Hotel Planner Tour. He won the Hangzhou Open. But like other than that, I mean, he's just kind of been known for like 18-hole pops. That 21 Magical Kenya Open, was that the year that Wu? No, that wasn't the year that Wu won. That was actually at Karen, so maybe not the same parallel, but he was in the thick of it there. But those were kind of a couple that stood out to me. But yeah, the China performance last year to close the year, I think he was 4th also, those back-to-back events. So maybe there's something with legs there plus his iron play.
Yeah, 100%. Like Sebastian Garcia, he is one. Like I think we do look at him and just go, right, he's going to be a first-round leader player and not much else. And he's always quite well priced for that, right? And I think the fact that he's kind of in this now for an outright suggests where we're at with the game. Like he is just very solid. He's putting together performances. It's very rare that his iron play actually results in anything. He just has some good iron weeks and doesn't really make anything of it. And for him to go and do 4 or 5 results in a row was quite impressive. Another name I'm just looking at while you were talking about Sebastian Garcia, not necessarily related, but I was just looking for the ball strikers, was Ewan Walker.
For
the last couple of weeks, right? Last couple of events. And he finished 6th in that Hainan Classic in China. And then when you talked about the Hangzhou Open, he was 14th there a couple of years ago. He's played well, again there, last year. So he's someone that kind of caught my eye a little bit. Probably not to win or anything like that. He's probably just kind of like a top 10 or whatever it might be. But he was interesting. But the one that I kind of landed on was Alexander Levy or Levy, whatever we want to kind of call him. Very much down the line. All 3, Ategi, Manacero, Levy, all 5-time winners on the DP World Tour. And it's just not a coincidence. I've gone out looking for these players on purpose. And Levy will always kind of come into mind of this because he's a 2-time winner of the Volvo China Open, 2 of those 5 wins coming in this part of the world. Obviously different golf courses, but the same event's always going to help. There's been some encouraging signs. He was 10th at the Open de España last October. He was then 7th in Mauritius in December. The last time we saw him, he was 29th in Kenya, where he shot 2 66s and a 67. So it's really surprising, actually, that he didn't finish higher than that. He was 12th in approach for in Kenya. Really good indicator of where he was. So I think for him, and this comes back to that point, Sky, of like how much are we rating the kind of recent form? Because normally you go, look, he hasn't played in 3 months, whatever it might be. Like, how can we really be confident of it? But everyone's dealing with being cold. Like, all of them. Like, even the best you just mentioned there, like the market leader's not played for 9 weeks. Like, so I almost elevate him a little bit and go, look, if he was playing well when we seen him in spot starts, he's probably fresh and ready to go. He knows how to play in China. He's a 2-time winner. So for him to be 100 to 1 as a 5-time winner in this type of field, 2 of those wins coming in this event, okay, it's not the same golf course and he didn't play the course last year, but I was really encouraged by it. And one of the people I was looking at was, he did play here last year, sorry, he finished 36th, but he was pretty average and amongst a poor run. But the other person I was kind of thinking about was Afib Amrat, and I backed him in this last year, and he was 3rd going into the final round. But last year he was like 140 to 1, and this year he's 90. And I know you shouldn't turn your own up at 90 to 1 golfers, and it's probably more a reflection of the field. But he's not really doing it. Like, it would just be a case of like Afib Amrat's back in China and he might play well again. There's not really massive amounts of signs. He was okay for a couple of rounds in South Africa. He was okay for a couple of rounds in Kenya, but he's not been able to piece it together. So in the end, I kind of went with Levy and being a 2-time Volvo China Open winner.
Those are like, if I think of my, and our memory of the DP World Tour is different from those that, potentially have been, writing and following it for multiple decades, but like the Volvo China Open with Levy and Alexander Bjork were like kind of what I like. Those early like duels were kind of some of the stuff that I'd have to go look at some of those results and fields from them. But like I can vividly remember watching those in the wee hours of the morning to kind of get that was when like it first from a DFS perspective came to the States and got to really dig into it for some of that. And those were fun early on. Okay, so I got one more selection. I'm going to give a shout out to our audio listeners. You can find us on Daily Fantasy Sports Picks and Bets, The Mix, available across Mayo Media Network platforms. Super appreciative of all the love you can give us. Pat and his team really love the opportunity to do this. Rate, review, subscribe, the comments. We try to go back, Tom and I, to circle back on YouTube for this too. So definitely thankful for everything that you guys continue to provide us, and for the break and coming right back. I know stop and start a little bit. We'll give an idea of what the schedule looks like once we kind of get back in for the saddle here. But super appreciative of all you guys. So if I'm looking at my last selection, always kind of look at local tours. The China Tour here for those that have popped over to the Henan Open. How did they play? Have we seen some of these golfers before? So there was 3 golfers that kind of stood out from like a recency standpoint. So if I kind of go up, let me get it. Bowen Chai, Chai, won last week on the China Tour. He was 21st at the Henan Classic. He was somebody that, at least from like a overall standpoint, seemed to have like a profile. I mean, he's just only 20 years old. So like, Zhu is 18. If we look at Chai here, he is 12th, or he is 20. He finished 12th last year on the Challenge Tour when played in this. Missed the cut at this event last year. Didn't really have like the background of like profile that really sold me on him, was the only fear that I had. And I kind of had that same thought with Bo Jin. Bo Jin was 17th at the Henan Classic a couple weeks ago, followed it up with a 5th and the 7th on the China Tour. Halfway point, Bo Jin, 6th at the Henan Classic, 54 holes, 7th. And then he kind of fell off with a Sunday 75. Both those guys, compare it to Zhao or Zhu, had, at least price. Bowen Chai is 120-1. Bo Jin is 320-1. So I was going to side with Bo Jin. But then I came across our old friend, Zihao Jin. So Zihao Jin was the graduate the year before on the DP World Tour, who came in probably on my betting card for half of the early events. He was a 5 or 6 time winner in 2024 on the China Tour. A little bit deeper into his career. I believe he's 27. But like came in with respect kind of in the markets a little bit. Thought we'd kind of get him going. Had finished top 20 in both of the Challenge Tour events. Fed into the DP World Tour and arguably just never had it. The one event, though, that he did is the corollary course of Muthaiga for Ashton Wu's win at the Magic Kenya Open. He finished 7th in that event, 4 rounds in the 60s. And then you look at him and what he has done this year. He's played 4 times. First event was in February, T58 on the Asian Tour. Then he wins on the local China Tour. T34 at the Henan Classic, I believe at the halfway point, he was inside the top 15. 13th. And then T6 last week in the local China Tour. So a little bit more of the lead-in form, profile base of who I know of him from a winning standpoint. And then you put them side by side and you end up getting the middle price there at 210-1. So I think the price is at least letting me think through it from the local perspective for the last selection of the betting card.
Yeah, I think with Zihao, like, as you said, he's just had that exposure at this level. He was a 5-time winner in 2024, comes over here. As you said, struggled a little bit, but the 7th in Kenya are really eye-catching. It's also just sometimes when he's been like 38th in Bahrain or whatever it might be, like just better than people kind of give it credit for. Like I think people don't realize how hard it is to kind of go off of these Japanese tours and Chinese tours and kind of make a real run at it. And I think about someone like Ryo Hitsasune, right? Like I guess there's people that are just better than others, and it certainly seems that way. I mean, he's having a real moment on the PGA Tour right now, but it's not like he was dominant on the DPR Tour. He won once in France, but he's really forged a career for himself. I think it's quite easy. I mean, again, like he's 23, so he's just early in his career, but there is room for these players to kind of come on here and play well. I mean, like Bobby Bay used to be the one everyone kind of wanted to go for, right? And
I wanted to bet him again. Yeah.
I think it's I forget his name off the top of my head, but the Indian tour guy that always used to make the step up, and we never sure.
Manu Gandhi, yeah.
Manu Gandhi, right? Like those types of players, eventually they're probably gonna like forge a decent career over here, and it might be that they're well into their 30s by the time it happens. But the world has been so difficult for 5 or 6 years in terms of like pandemic and all sorts of like it just, even if they got their break, they didn't really get a chance to sort of take the reins with both hands, if you know what I mean. So yeah, a long way of saying, I think in general, if you were to look at the leaderboards, you'd go, do you know what, as much as, and this accounts for the 40-1s and the 400-1 golfers locally, they're probably not going to win. That's the kind of takeaway. We talk about it all the time at the Zozo, whatever it was called this year, Bay Current Classic. Like the Japanese players don't win, they don't get the each way, they kind of might start well. But I do think this level of DPR Tour allows for room to see a good performance. So, yeah, long way of saying that I support the pick.
Perfect. Cool. All right, we can round it out here if you want to close with your betting card.
Yeah, absolutely. So Eugenio Lopez Chikara, I think, is still very good value at 20-1. Then got Adrian Ategi at 47-1. I'm with you on Matteo Manacero at 60-1. And then it's Alexander Levy at 100-1 for me, Sky.
Yep, perfect. Eugenio Chichara with me, 20-1. Matteo Manacero, 60-1. David Law, 100-1. Hugo Townsend, 100-1. Sebastian Garcia, 130. And then Zihao Jin, 210-1. Great to be back with you, Tom. Hopefully the listeners enjoy the show. Like I said, we're very thankful for all of you guys. And then we can catch you next week. We should have a little bit of normalcy from a schedule standpoint, right? We have, let's see, here, Turkey, and then we'll be going straight for the next 3 weeks, right, with in Spain for the Catalunya Championship. So 3 weeks of leading into the PGA Championship. So we'll catch you next week. Thank you as always, Tom, and appreciate you guys.
Thanks, Scott.